There is a bill sitting in the American auto industry right now that is worth more than $40 billion. It has already been issued. It has already been paid, in part, and the remainder is being collected right now, this month, from people who have absolutely no idea they are the ones paying it. You will not find it on a window sticker. There is no line item on a purchase agreement that says tariff. No finance manager is going to slide a form across the desk and point to it. Your dealer is not hiding it from you. In most cases, your dealer could not itemize it for you if you asked, because by the time a vehicle reaches the lot, that cost has been folded into 6 other numbers. But it is in there. It is in the price of the truck. It is in the destination charge. It is in the parts your mechanic orders. It is in what your trade-in is worth and what the used car on the next lot over is asking. And over the last 2 years, it has quietly rewritten what a normal car costs in this country. I am going to walk you through exactly where that $40 billion came from, exactly which companies are carrying the most of it, and exactly how much of it has landed on you specifically. And at the end, I am going to show you the one number on a window sticker that tells you, in about 4 seconds, how much tariff cost is baked into the vehicle you are standing in front of. Most people walk right past it. It is printed on every new car sold in America. Let me start with where the 40 billion figure actually comes from, because I want you to know I am not rounding up for a thumbnail. That number belongs to 6 companies, just 6. Japan's 6 largest automakers, the group that includes Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and the rest of the major Japanese manufacturers selling into this market. In the fiscal year ending in March of 2026, tariffs, shifting electric vehicle policy, and changes to emissions rules cost those 6 companies roughly $27.5 billion. Tariffs alone accounted for about $15 billion of it, and the forecast for the following fiscal year adds another $14.5 billion on top. Put those together and you clear $40 billion in cost absorbed by 6 companies in 2 years. Now hold that thought, because that is not the whole industry. That is one country's manufacturers. Across the broader market, the estimate for total added industry cost from these tariffs sits around $30 billion in a single 12-month window. Different analysts, different methodologies, different windows. The figures do not stack neatly on top of each other, and I am not going to pretend they do. But every serious estimate lands in the same territory, tens of billions of dollars in new cost appearing in an industry that did not have that cost 18 months earlier. And an industry does not eat tens of billions of dollars quietly. So let me explain what actually changed, because most of the coverage of this has been political, and almost none of it has been practical. There are 3 separate tariff systems operating on cars in this country right now, and they do not work the same way. The first is Section 232. That is a 25% duty applied to imported passenger vehicles and, critically, to imported auto parts. That word, parts, is the one that turns this from a foreign car problem into everybody's problem, and I will come back to it. The second is Section 301, which applies a 100% tariff to Chinese-built electric vehicles. That one is straightforward in effect. It did not raise the price of Chinese EVs in America. It removed them from the market entirely. The third is the North American Trade Agreement, which allows qualifying vehicles built in the United States, Canada, and Mexico to cross the border at 0%. That last one is the lifeline. It is the reason the entire North American industry has not simply seized up. It is also the one that is least stable, because whether a specific vehicle qualifies depends on content rules that are technical, contested, and subject to review. Vehicles that fail to qualify are already paying the full 25%. So you have a 25% duty, a 100% duty, and an exemption that a vehicle either earns or does not. 3 systems, 3 rates, and one industry trying to plan a 5-year product cycle around all of them at once. That is where the $40 billion comes from. Now let me show you who is actually carrying it, because it is not distributed anywhere near evenly, and the company most exposed is one you would never guess. The single most exposed manufacturer in the American market is Toyota. I want to let that sit because it runs against everything most people believe about this company. Toyota is the brand Americans think of as practically domestic. Plants in Kentucky, Indiana, Texas, Mississippi, decades of American investment. The Camry and the RAV4 built here, sold here, in volumes that dwarf most of the market. And Toyota projected a tariff-related hit of 1.45 trillion yen for the fiscal year ending in March of 2026. In dollars, that is roughly $9 billion. $9 billion from one company in 1 year. That figure represented close to a 25% decline in the company's net income. A quarter of Toyota's profit gone into a tariff line. Here is why, and this is the part that explains the whole thing. Toyota builds an enormous amount of product in the United States, but the vehicles it does not build here are some of the most desirable things it sells. The 4Runner comes from Japan. Much of the Lexus lineup comes from Japan. Those carry the full 25% Section 232 duty, not a share of it, not a negotiated rate, the full amount on vehicles that were already expensive. So the company most associated with American manufacturing took the largest single hit because the profitable end of its lineup crosses an ocean to get here. Now, the Detroit companies. The instinct is to assume the American manufacturers came out of this untouched. That was the entire premise of the policy. General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis carry a combined exposure of around $6.5 billion, not from imported vehicles, from imported parts. This is the detail that gets lost in almost every conversation about this subject, so I want to be very direct about it. There is no such thing as an American car in the sense most people mean. A vehicle assembled in Michigan is built from components sourced across dozens of countries. Wiring harnesses, semiconductors, transmissions, castings, seat frames, sensors. Section 232 applies 25% to imported auto parts, not just to finished vehicles. So the truck assembled in Kentucky by American workers still absorbs tariff cost on a meaningful share of what is bolted to it. Add the separate duties on steel and aluminum, 50%, and the picture gets clearer. Industry estimates put the added cost on a domestically assembled vehicle at somewhere between $1,600 and $2,000 per unit. On an imported vehicle, that figure runs between $5,000 and $8,900. So the gap is real, and it is large. Buying American assembled genuinely does reduce your exposure, and I will show you how to verify it before you sign. But the floor is not zero. It has not been zero for anyone. Now, how the companies responded, because they did not all make the same choice, and the choice they made determines what you pay. Broadly, there were three strategies. The first was absorption. Honda publicly committed to eating the tariff cost rather than passing it to buyers, and backed that up by moving production. The hybrid Civic to Indiana, CR-V production relocating out of Ontario and into the United States. That is a company deciding that market share is worth more than margin, and paying for the decision with capital investment. The second was straightforward pass-through. Audi announced increases across most of its 2026 models ranging from $800 to $4,100, and at one point halted imports outright. Ferrari raised prices roughly 10% on most of the range, exempting only a handful of models. When your buyer is not price sensitive, you simply send them the invoice. The third strategy is the interesting one, and it is the one you need to watch for. Quiet substitution. Hyundai froze its suggested retail prices to protect buyers through a stated date, which sounds like generosity. In the same period, the company ended its complimentary maintenance program, starting with 2026 model year vehicles. The sticker held. The value came out somewhere else. That is not unique to one brand, and it is not illegal or even particularly sneaky. It is what every company in a cost squeeze does. The headline number is what gets compared in reviews and shopping tools, so the headline number is what gets defended, and the cost gets relocated to somewhere buyers do not comparison shop. Free maintenance, warranty terms, standard equipment quietly moved to an options package, financing rates, and one other place, which is the single largest and most effective of them all. That one deserves its own section because it is now costing domestic buyers more than $700 a vehicle above what import buyers pay for the exact same service. Most people have never questioned it once. The destination charge. Every new vehicle sold in this country has one. It appears near the bottom of the window sticker. It is added after the price you negotiated, and almost nobody has ever asked what it actually is. In principle, it is simple. It is the cost of transporting the vehicle from the assembly plant to the dealership, truck, rail, ship, handling. In practice, it has become something else entirely. Here is what happened to that number. In a single year, destination fees on domestic brands rose by 163%, not 16%, and the following year they went up again, another 25%, adding roughly $150 on top. Domestic brands now average around $2,189 in destination charges. The average across imported brands is about $1,476. Read those two numbers again because the relationship between them makes no physical sense. The vehicle built in Kentucky is now charging you $713 more to reach your dealership than the vehicle that was manufactured overseas, loaded onto an ocean freighter, sailed across the Pacific, unloaded at a port, and trucked inland. Shipping did not get more expensive from Kentucky than it is from Japan. That gap is not transportation. That gap is tariff cost, relocated, And it works for one specific reason. The destination charge is not part of the advertised MSRP. When you look up a vehicle on a shopping site, when a reviewer quotes a starting price, when a manufacturer runs a commercial with a number on the screen, destination is excluded from all of it. So a company can hold the headline price flat, keep its position in every comparison tool and every buyer's guide, and recover the cost in a line item that appears after you have already decided which vehicle you want. And unlike the price of the car, you cannot negotiate it. There is no version of that conversation you win. It is a fixed charge, and every buyer pays it. It is structurally the most efficient way to raise a price without appearing to raise a price, which is exactly why it has been used the hardest. If this is the kind of breakdown you want more of, subscribe. This channel takes the money side of the car business apart piece by piece. The pricing, the policy, the quiet decisions that end up on your paperwork. It costs you nothing, and it keeps this in front of you. Now let me give you the aggregate, because there is one piece of genuinely good news buried in these numbers, and I do not want to skip past it. Since the 25% vehicle tariff took effect, the average suggested retail price across the market has risen 10.4%. But that is not what buyers have actually paid. Over the same period, the average transaction, what people actually signed for, rose 5.9%. The difference is 4.5%, and that difference did not disappear. Somebody absorbed it. Dealers did. Through negotiation, through competitive pressure, through the simple reality that a lot on which nothing is selling is a lot that starts making deals. That gap was largest on imported brands, where the pressure was most intense. So roughly speaking, a substantial share of the sticker increase never reached the buyer. It got argued away at the desk. I want you to understand what that means practically, because it is the single most useful thing in this video. There is more room in these deals right now than there has been in years. The manufacturers raised prices. The market did not fully accept it. That space between the sticker and the signature is where you live as a buyer, and it is currently wide. But it is closing. Manufacturer relief programs, the tariff absorption pricing several companies ran to protect market share, were built as temporary measures. As those wind down, the industry expectation is that a larger share of the remaining cost passes through to buyers. The cushion is not permanent, it was a decision, and decisions get reversed on a quarterly earnings call. Here is where the market actually stands today. The average new vehicle transaction price in this country crossed $50,000 for the first time in history. Most industry data now puts it somewhere between $49,000 and $52,000, depending on how the average is weighted. The average payment on a financed new vehicle sits around $770 a month, and more than 1 in 5 new car buyers is now paying over $1,000 a month. And if you are thinking you will simply avoid all of this by buying used, that door is closing too. As new prices rise, demand shifts to used, and used values follow. Average used vehicle prices ran roughly 15% above where they sat little more than a year earlier. The bill does not stop at the new car lot. It never does. So that is the damage, top to bottom. Now let me show you what you can actually do about it, starting with that number on the window sticker I mentioned at the beginning. Every new vehicle sold in the United States carries a federally mandated label on the window. Most people know it as the window sticker. On that label, there is a line that states the vehicle's final assembly point, country, plant, right there in print, on every car on every lot in America. That single line tells you which side of the 25% line the vehicle sits on, and almost nobody standing on a dealership lot has ever read it. If the car has already been sold and the sticker is gone, there is a second way. The first digit of the VIN indicates where the vehicle was manufactured. A 1, 4, or 5 means the United States. A 2 is Canada. A 3 is Mexico. A J is Japan. A K is Korea. A W is Germany. 4 seconds. On a windshield you are already standing next to. Now, what that tells you and what it does not. A vehicle assembled in the United States carries meaningfully less tariff cost. The estimates put domestic assembly at roughly $1,600 to $2,000 of added cost, against $5,000 to nearly $9,000 on an imported vehicle. That is not a small difference. On a $50,000 purchase, it is the difference between an annoyance and a serious number. But I told you earlier, there is no such thing as a tariff-free car in this country, and I meant it. The Kentucky-built vehicle still absorbs duty on imported components, plus 50% steel and aluminum tariffs on top. Assembly location reduces your exposure. It does not eliminate it, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling something. Second thing you can do, and this one is specific, you cannot negotiate the destination charge, but you can see it before you commit, and you can compare it. That fee varies by hundreds of dollars between brands and between models. It is disclosed. It is on the sticker. And because almost no buyer treats it as part of the price, almost no buyer uses it as a tiebreaker. If you are cross-shopping two vehicles you like roughly equally, pull up both destination charges. You may find $700 sitting there that you would otherwise never have looked at. Third, and this is about timing, I showed you that the gap between sticker prices and what buyers actually sign for has been unusually wide. Manufacturers raised prices further than the market was willing to absorb, and dealers have been closing that distance with negotiation. That room exists right now. It has not been this wide in years. It is also the most temporary thing in this entire video. The relief programs that produced it were designed as temporary. As they wind down, the expectation across the industry is that more of the remaining cost moves on to buyers. If you are within a year of needing a vehicle anyway, the arithmetic currently favors sooner rather than later. I am not telling you to buy a car you do not need. Now, I want to be fair about the other side of this because you deserve the whole picture and not just the part that makes a better thumbnail. There is a real argument for these policies, and it is not nothing. Domestic vehicle production has risen. Several major manufacturers, including Toyota, Honda, Stellantis, and Hyundai, have announced multi-billion-dollar commitments to United States facilities. Honda is moving Civic Hybrid and CR-V production onto American soil. That is real industrial activity, and those are real jobs in real places. Whether that long-term shift is worth the short-term cost to people buying cars right now is a genuine debate, and reasonable people land on both sides of it. Some economists argue the manufacturing base is worth paying for. Others point out that the cost falls hardest on buyers at the bottom of the market because the cheapest vehicles are the ones built where costs are lowest. I am not here to tell you which of those you should believe. That is a political question and you have your own opinions about it. What I am here to tell you is that the bill is real, the bill is large, and the bill has your name on it whether or not anybody ever hands it to you. $40 billion from 6 companies, $30 billion across the industry in a year. An average new car that crossed $50,000 for the first time in history, $770 a month, and 1 in 5 buyers passed $1,000. None of that appears as a line item anywhere in your paperwork, which is exactly why it works. If you want to see what all of this has done to the last genuinely affordable truck in America, watch the video on screen now. It is the one story in this market where a manufacturer pushed back, and the numbers are not what anyone predicted. And subscribe, because this is the part of the car business that is never going to be explained to you at the dealership. I will see you in the next one.